So this is part 2 of parental estrangement, the road to estrangement, or the road to parental estrangement. Is it just jokes? Some minor technical difficulties where the phone stopped recording, but we're back. Anyway, as I was talking about hypersensitive or hypersensitivity in children, and how that can pave, jokes about that can pave the way to parental estrangement. I was using an example of my sister and how she was called the Screaming Mimi, and how that when I was very young, that's how I started viewing her, right? Oh, well, she's a crybaby. Oh, okay. And so what I was saying before the video cut off was that was one of the topics I wanted to cover when I started considering shortening the video. But I thought about it, and if you don't want to watch, you can always skip through or not watch at all. And so I'm going to continue with the intended material I had for here. Parents have to be careful how they frame the way that they, may make fun, even if it's in jest, even if it's in good faith, if it's meant just to be a joke. Because you can frame the way the other children see your child. You can frame, most importantly, the way that your child sees themselves, okay? And so in the example that I use where my sister was labeled a crying, a screaming Mimi, where we all, all the children, all of us, oh, well, she's always crying. Why are you always crying? And that was a running theme. Everyone heard. I heard it from everyone. I remember my father giving her spankings because she was crying, right? And she was scared. She didn't want to have to sleep in the bed by herself. And so I think back to those times, and when I talk to parents, I say, you have to go through your mind bank because you're the parent. You were involved in that baby's life, in that child's life, and that child has now become an adult. So something along the lines of your parenting and parent-child relationship changed. And if you sit down and you look at it and you're honest with yourself, you can tell yourself just about when it changes. Parents know. A lot of times it changes just as our children are going to 3rd and 4th grade, right? Because they're starting to really understand their autonomy. They start to pull away from their parents. Now, children have way more information than we ever did in their hands. And so they have, videos they can watch where they can tell, well, this is what a toxic parent looks like, right? And so now they don't have to put up with that. They can have a new level of awareness, and there's people there to support it, right? And so you could have been building the road to estrangement for quite some time before you even experience it, okay? And that's the purpose of these videos, is to give some insight to parents who say, well, I don't know why I'm on this road to estrangement. I don't know why my child has chosen no contact. If you are honest with yourself and you're kind and patient and compassionate with yourself and sit down and really go through your parenting, you can start to look at a way in which you may have influenced the breakdown in your relationship with your adult child. I think I shared in one of the videos prior to this that sometimes parents will say, well, I know that there wasn't anything that I did wrong, and so I just really don't know, this is just all, surprise to me. And I said in that video that it's not always about the act of the parent. It can also be from your lack of protection, your lack of an ability or a lack of an awareness to know when harm was coming to your child or being caused to your child, okay? And so it's easy to look at it from that framework as well. Even with addiction, when it comes to, and I don't want to use that A word, I'm learning from harm reductionists not to use very stigmatized words. And addiction is one of those stigmatized words. It's called substance use disorder, and I forgot the other one, but I know for sure that there's one, the substance use disorder. And even in those times, something was going on that we would have caught, right? There was a change in our child's behavior. There was a change in how they were coming to school, coming from school, going to school, missing school, not coming home. There was something there that was giving us some alarms that there was problems going on, and maybe we just didn't know what that looked like. Okay, that's okay too. A lot of us are navigating parenting children without the assistance of elders or older people or others who've been down that road. And so it's normal to have missed some things or to not have been educated or aware, right? It's not about blame, it's about understanding. And if you better understand how you could have played a role, how you could have missed the signs, how you might have, not been available or not have had the connection with your child that you thought you had. There's nothing wrong with that. When it becomes wrong is when you go into denying, right? When you refuse accountability, when you don't want to be wrong and you're willing to sacrifice your relationship with your adult child so that you can continue to be right, okay? Accountability is one of the pillars in this community, the matriarch community. It's one of the most important pillar, and that's why it's number one. And so, and dealing with the hypersensitive child, the way that you engage with that child when they were young could have impacted how they felt about their relationship with you. The way you allowed other people to engage with the child could have impacted the way that they felt that you were not there to protect them, right? And so people think it's funny and they laugh and, oh, look at them, they're crying and they're always sensitive about this and the other. You have people who adopt a persona around that hardens them. They become callous, cold, because they had to do that in order to survive in their own families, okay? And so we can see ways in which we can really impact our children's mental health by things that we don't see as a big deal, but they really are. Third on the list is colorism. As I spoke when I spoke of homophobia, colorism is not something that someone who is not a dark-skinned black person that we can have insight or input into. That's not our experience. And I had to learn that because in my mind, I was dark-skinned. In my mind, I was living like a black woman and I have a right to speak into those spaces. That's not true. We may have similar experiences, but a sister whose skin is darker than my skin has a totally different experience out here in this world. A totally different experience. When we have issues of treating of colorism within our families and children are left out or made to feel less than or not a part of the family because of their darker skin, that's a problem. That's not just internalized toxic masculinity, that's internalized racism. That's internalized racism, internalized white supremacy. And so, coming from a family, growing up where we were called red, and the little red girl over there, and this and that and the other, I thought that that was very painful at the time for myself, right? And I'm not saying that it wasn't. But when I grew up and I had my own children And my children happen to be every color on the spectrum within our community. And to see the difference made between my children who were fairer skinned and my children who were darker skinned was very disheartening. To address people within the family, within our immediate family, right? Our own personal family, and with our in-laws. And there are people who are color struck, and they will choose their lighter skinned relatives because it puts them closer to the proximity of whiteness. And they're willing to wage and everything they have on being able to say, this is who we are, and we are not them. And that's a problem. Because if our children are going out into this world and they're experiencing racism on a whole other level and experiencing colorism within their communities, that's not safe. Where's your safe space? So when you say, I don't know why my children aren't speaking to me, is it possible that you didn't defend them when people were talking about them because they look different than the rest of their family? Did you expect their experiences to be equal to yours and you just say, well, I just get over it? Oh, well, girl, that didn't happen to me. I'm like the only black person at my job and they cool with me. Your experience as a light skin, brown skin, caramel skin, whatever you want to call it, black person is not the same as a dark skinned black person. It's not. And there's no way for you to fix your mouth to say that it is. You may experience racism. You may experience pushback from your job, but the level that you receive it at will never be at the level that your dark-skinned family members, friends, and community members experience it at. And so when you think about that as a parent, were there times that you made comments about other dark-skinned people in the presence of your dark-skinned child? You can even be dark-skinned yourself and have self-hating ways that you have internalized white supremacy and make your child feel bad about who they are. And so you have to really be honest with yourself. It's what I tell parents. The first step in this thing is that you don't have to, you have to remember, nobody knows your business more than you and your child. What happened between you and that child, y'all know. And you saying, no, that wasn't me, I was a good parent, that was not what I intended, that doesn't help heal. So if you're looking for reconciliation, it sure doesn't come on the back of denial. It has to be accountability first. And then you have to heal yourself. Because if you don't, you wound and rewound again. And then you take advantage of a very vulnerable person who believed that you were going to change, and you didn't. Last on the list was neurodiversity. And I can't speak about that in a way where I'm speaking for the autism community or autistic community. I will just say, as a person who has had caregivers that have loved ones who are autistic, as a case manager who's worked with families with children who have autism, there are times when there's a parent and maybe a co-parent situation. I'll just tell you an example. There was a co-parent, and the co-parent wasn't in agreement with the child being diagnosed as having autism, and they came to an appointment and they said that their child was a pea brain and that the mother was spoiling them and that the mother was creating an environment that the child didn't want to do anything. And it goes a way more deeper than that. This can also rest along the lines of parental alienation as well. Parents who don't want to be accepting of their child's diagnoses. There are even times when people who are different, who may not have a autism diagnosis, and family members treat them differently than they do other family members, right? Because there's a difference in how people on the spectrum process things, how they think, how they react when situations or environments are very uncomfortable for them, right? And like I said, I can't go into detail with this. I can just tell you that I have adult people that I have been friends with, adult people that are in my family that may never get a diagnosis. Excuse me. Because of the stigmas attached to it, they aren't willing to go and see if that is in fact the case, that their family has made fun of them. Oh, what is wrong with you? You didn't feel that? You have a weird way of reacting to pain. Oh, well, why does it take you so long to answer? Don't you hear me talking to you? What were you doing? Why are you doing it that way? That's a long way around. And stop moving. And what are you humming? Or what is that click? What is that sound? Why do you say when you talk? That's painful for that individual. And to have spent years being oppressed, made fun of, talked about, isolated, punished. Even sometimes there's been physical abuse to people who are on the spectrum because they're different. And so when parents say, well, I don't know what caused my child to go no contact, were you making fun of them for being different? Did you abuse them for being different? You have to be honest about that. How many times in your family are people different that you've made fun of? Oh, you weird, you quirky, you this, you that. Oh, that's so awkward. Ooh, they get on my nerves. And why do they always act like that? They don't want to be around people, and they just. Would you want to be around you? I don't think you would. So when you start thinking about how did I wind up here in this space, you first have to ask yourself, where did you miss the signs? Because in hindsight now, when I look back on parental estrangement, I saw a lot of places where I missed the signs because I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what that looked like. And that is my goal here in this community, to teach other parents what the road to estrangement was. How did they arrive?